Hey guys, Joe Stewart Johnson here. Today I want to talk about something that comes up quite a bit, and that's this idea of motivation. What is it? How do we work through it? And how can we make it work for us? All right, so first off, the way I want to start this is just to define what the dictionary says motivation is. And quite simply, that is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. Okay? So that's just it. And the way I like to explain this is, let's say I walk across a room. What is my motivation for doing that? I needed to get a pen. What is my motivation for getting a pen? I had a phone call and someone asked me to write something down. So we can think about motivation as simply that. It's just a reason for doing something. I think it becomes conflated with all these memes and inspiration stuff, but in actuality, every single thing you do has some type of motivation. So just to get that out of the way, very simple. What motivation is not, is it's not a feeling, and it's not like the tank of car on your gas that empties out and has to be filled up on occasion. It literally is just a reason. So why is it that motivation is something we talk so much about within the sphere of change, whether it be fitness and nutrition? Because fitness and nutrition is where we see a lot of this, and we see a lot of people using that, either using motivation as an excuse for why they're not performing, or people using motivation as a means to sell something or to get people out doing something. And all those things are valid, but we need to understand how it operates and where we work from in order to A, start using the terms correctly, but B, in order to understand what those reasons are, what that motivation really is. So where does this all come from? Well, when we're talking about in this change sphere, it really mostly stems from self-determination theory, which was theorized in the 70s and kind of has become very ubiquitous at this point. It's used throughout many realms of psychology, especially in sports psychology, but in anything from, dealing with people with alcohol or drug abuse issues, in regular talk therapy. We see it a lot in our sphere because it's a very cornerstone of motivational interviewing, which is something that a lot of people in the change sphere use to help develop their clients. And it is very instrumental in something else I've talked a lot about, and that's ownership. And you'll see a lot of parallels if you decide to dig more into that. And maybe in a future video I'll go a little bit more in depth. But it's not really that important. I just want to give you the basics of motivation so that you can utilize it better, not really so that you can use it in a psychological setting. And again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not an expert in that realm. These are just things that I've learned along the way because it really helps me to do what I do. So, motivation, according to self-determination theory, lies on a scale. So to speak. It's kind of a sliding scale that isn't necessarily super static. Things can move, people can move in between them, but it is a scale nonetheless. So it starts on what we would call external end of things. And external motivation literally means what it says. Those reasons are coming from outside of you. They're externally molding you, they're externally dictating what it is you're going to do. And from the furthest end of external all the way up to internal regulation or internal motivation, which is something you just do because you do it. Stopping just short of autonomic responses such as breathing. Obviously breathing is something you don't have any control over, but things that you do just because that's what you do every day. It just becomes part of who you are. So let's start with kind of the external edge. The very end of the spectrum is amotivation. Literally just means not motivated. Now, it's not when people say, I'm just not motivated to do something. Well, it could be. If you're truly not motivated to do something, you don't care about it and you don't think about it. So to say you're not motivated to work out today isn't ever the case because you aren't so unmotivated that you don't think about it. You're thinking about it. You just don't want to do it at that time. That's different than not being motivated. So amotivation is really people that don't care. We're not going to see this much on the change spectrum because you don't care. So you're not really going to delve into something you don't want to do. Unless we're talking on the medical sphere. A lot of people, they might talk to their doctors, and their doctors might say, hey, we really need to lower your cholesterol or lower your blood pressure or pay attention to your A1C. Those things might come up because someone has health problems. And that person might have completely amotivation up until that doctor's visit, and then all of a sudden that could change. Now, maybe they don't care. Maybe I don't care if I live or die. And that person would be completely not motivated. Now, the first kind of step into the regulation spectrum is external regulation. That's that drill instructor. That's that guy saying, you're going to do this, and you say, I'm going to do burpees because otherwise my coach is going to yell at me, or I'm going to do push-ups because I don't want to get in trouble by the drill instructor. It literally is that kind of mentality of like, I'm going to do this. Now, external regulation can be very beneficial for people starting out. It's a good way to get our foot in the door. It helps kind of jack us up. It's also something that as a coach we use sporadically and through. It could be in the middle of a workout, just telling someone, come on, get your ass up off the ground, or come on, get push that weight up, whatever it might be. Something you might see in a CrossFit gym or a high intensity interval training situation. You might see some of that external motivation, and that can help someone just kind of get them going if they're just kind of falling short and they just don't have it within them. But it's very short-lived. It's not something that's going to be a long-lasting change, sustainable type motivation. Next up, we have introjected. So this is when we start to internalize a little bit, but it's still an external motivation. So it's like, I know I should do this, but I really don't want to let my coach down. I need to, I want to do this paper because I want to pass this class, but mainly I don't want to let my teacher down. I want to make sure that they're happy. So again, we're starting to move into understanding that these things are important, starting to value them, but we're still using that external locus to kind of guide us. We're still not guiding on the path ourselves. Next up, we have internal regulation. This is kind of what I deem as acceptance. So like if, I've got a client who is trying to lose weight, and this is where they kind of come to say like, I need to hit my goals or I need to hit my numbers each day because hitting my numbers is what's going to get me to my goal. Now, it's still an external motivation, technically, but starting to see the value in it, starting to value it themselves, and starting to say, this is something that's important to me, and therefore I'm going to do this thing that is maybe not as important to me because it'll get me to the place where I want to be. And so this is a really good place to live. I think this is probably where most of us live in our goal kind of orientation, and it takes a little bit a while to sweep out of that. But what we do want to go is to this next phase, which is what we call identified regulation or identified motivation. This is where any of my clients who've worked with me have heard me say to them that probably at some point, you're just doing this because this is what a healthy person does, and you're a healthy person. Or this is what a fit person does, and you see yourself as a fit person. This is that internalizing values. This is that thing where we sit down and we really say, these are my values. This is who I want to be. And so I'm going to do these things because this all aligns with the person that I am or the person that I see myself as. So this is still an external form because it's not completely, you're still thinking about it, right? So you're still kind of doing things. But this is really kind of the gold standard for where most of us want to live. This is where we say, I have these values, I am this person, and so I'm going to do these things because that's who I am. that is who I project to the world. That is how I see myself, and that is how I want others to see me. And I value these things. Huge step. If you can get to there, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape in your change continuum. This is also why we work so hard to develop habits, because until you start to see the value, until you start to get to these points, we need to make sure that it just becomes something that you do almost rote. And at some point, you'll get to this final stage, which we call intrinsic motivation or intrinsic regulation. And what this is this is just doing it because that's what you do. You know, you go to work because, yeah, you want money and you want a living, but at the end of the day, it's what you do. You know, you go play with your kids because, you know, that's what you do. You get up, you know, it's literally just the things that you do because that's what you do and that's who you are. So I think that's really kind of where we hope to get to. It's not somewhere where we generally stay for many things, and a lot of times we'll see throughout all of these phases, you might find yourself waxing and waning to more internal or more external. And that's okay. But when you see that, the importance of self-awareness about looking into ourselves and saying, all right, so this is happening. What is it that's causing me to kind of slip back into more of an external? Where am I slipping out of the value system? And what can I do to change that? And then reevaluating values, like all of these things come into play. Because in all honesty, if your values are no longer what your values once were, then it'll be hard to keep internal regulation on some things, and that's okay. But really the main goal of this is just to kind of give you a broad spectrum of what this looks like, of what motivation is, and the difference between being motivated by being yelled at or looking at a meme on Instagram, and what it means to be motivated because it's what you value, it's who you are, or it's just what you do when you wake up in the morning. The gold standard is here, but yet we all seem to try to live here, and we think that this is what's going to get us to our goals, but it's not. Start off here. When you need it, use a little bit of this, but at the end of the day, really know that it's when you value something, when you love something, when you become something, is when it really, really becomes just part of who you are. All right? The reason you do things is because that's what you do, not because someone told you to. All right? Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.